Hi everyone. For the ladies in the audience, how many of you have ever had a rough day and so you went home, you pulled out some ice cream and popped in your favorite Chick-fil-A? Pretty sure most of us have done this at least once in our lives. Now, why is it that we default to these romantic movies? Well, these romantic films, they pull us out of our sad reality and they bring us into this world of fairy tales and happy endings. They reinforce this romanticism philosophy that's in most of the Hollywood romance films that are out there. By viewing this romance genre, audiences' perceptions of romance are altered and instead create an unhealthy, unrealistic expectation of love. The movie 500 Days of Summer, however, which is a low-budget indie romance film, it's different than your typical Hollywood film. It sets out to change Hollywood's perceptions of love. And this is the artifact that I did my rhetorical criticism on. What I found interesting to begin with is the background is that this film was based very closely on the life and experiences of its screenwriter. The events that happened in the film essentially happened to him, and that's what the film is based on. So in the movie, we have Tom and Summer. They meet, and from the very beginning, Tom thinks that Summer is the one for him, his soulmate. He's smitten by her. However, she does not reciprocate this. She doesn't want a serious relationship. She doesn't want a boyfriend. But she leads him on anyway, and he takes that and runs with it. But she ends up breaking up with him, and of course he gets hurt and is sad, he's depressed. It completely blindsided him, but however, as the movie goes on, he begins to see there were signs all along that the relationship was doomed. Now, he goes into the depression after the breakup, like I said, but then he gets motivated to start studying his passion of architecture again, and then he finds happiness and fulfillment in life as he is and where he's at. So, my research question that I began with was, how do the different elements of 500 Days of Summer challenge viewers' expectations and shatter the image of romance that has been created by Hollywood? The method I used for my criticism was generative criticism. And in essence, an explanation of the artifact is drawn from the artifact itself. Instead of looking at the artifact from a certain structure, the artifact is allowed to speak for itself to the critiquer. Now, to begin my analysis, I first looked at the Romanticism philosophy. And this was something that was born as a revolt against the Enlightenment. And this was a rational, orderly way of thinking around the time of the Industrial Revolution. They believed that science and reason could create the perfect utopian world. But the Romantics saw the damage it was doing to nature and to people, and they rebelled against that. They embraced instead emotion over reason and senses over intellect. So this type of thinking is what is portrayed a lot through the romance genre, such as follow your heart or love is all you need. But 500 Days of Summer seeks to discredit that and says, well, you're wrong. And one of the ways and how it does this is that Summer, the main character, is obviously named after the summer season, which is, summer. And so, their romance, summer romances are known to end quickly. You never think of a summer romance as lasting and ongoing. Fall romances, winter romances, there's no stereotype for that, but summer romances are known to end and fail. And so, in that way, her name is almost prophetic of their doomed romance. Another thing I found very interesting is that in almost every outfit Summer wears, there's a shade of blue in there. It can be as obvious as a blue dress she's wearing, or very subtle like a blue ribbon in her hair. And blue kind of connotates sadness, cold, winter. Winter, the opposite of summer, which is warm and happy and bright. So in that way, what she's wearing is prophetic, that color blue, prophetic of their doomed relationship. Now for Tom, he was trained from childhood, as it says in the movie, to follow his heart from this movie called The Graduate. It's an old Hollywood romantic film. And in the movie, the two main characters finally realize they are each other's true loves, and they run away from everybody and go follow their hearts and be together. And so Tom, that was the premise for his perceptions on love, that there's a soulmate out there for me and I got to follow my heart. But he failed to see the very end of the movie when they're on the bus in The Graduate, riding away. They're happy, they're ecstatic, they're laughing, but slowly their faces just become somber and solemn and their happiness disappears. But Tom never realized that. So these all show that Tom, he followed his heart instead of his better judgment. There was all these warning signs. He followed his heart instead, and he ended up heartbroken. Had he listened to reason and his better judgment, the relationship would have never happened, and he wouldn't have ended up hurt. This proves that the Romanticism philosophy of following your heart is wrong, because your heart can't be trusted. You need to listen to your better judgment and your reason. But to conclude, the movie doesn't end with an unhappy, sad Tom. As I said before, he rediscovers his passion. He lets go of misery and chooses to be happy with who he is, what he loves, and where he's at in life. He learns that love isn't the answer to true happiness. It may have been there all along, waiting to be taken hold of. Happiness is what you make of life. It's not found in the pretty blue eyes next door. And that is one of the main themes in 500 Days of Summer.